starting to connect to the server for recording. So now we are moving towards the short plenary that we had planned for setting the scene up. We will have two short presentations. The first one will be by Professor Ronaldo Cristofoletti. Ronaldo is a professor at the Federal University of Sao Paulo. He works at the Institute of Marine Sciences, and he has mainly two areas of knowledge, marine science and also scientific communication. And he will give us a presentation connecting to coastal resilience in the view of community needs and science capacities from experiences from Brazil. It will be followed by, let's just go first to Ronaldo, and then I will introduce the second speaker. Thank you. Ronaldo, would you like to share your screen? Did you? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, hello, Sandra, Sophia, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and to share a few of these experiences, thoughts. I organized that much more in a way of being a little bit, let's say, provocative on our experiences on coastal resilience, but as requested, much like thinking about the community needs and the science capacities. So I will come back for this community needs very soon for us to understand these ideas of how, as our area, how, as this wider group, can we contribute on all of this. Because the first thing I would already share that we always have been listening is by generating science, but it's not by only generating science. So when we produce science, this is a huge step and one of the most important to have scientific-based decisions, but the science is not easy and is not really easy available for communities. And here by communities, I will say for the ones that are there in the territory, in their houses or their schools or their work, but also for the government. So how can we make sure that science is going there? And then we say, well, okay, let's say about climate resilience, but what is climate resilience for us and what is it for them? For us as scientists, is much more focused on understanding the process of ocean science and then how can we build the things. But for them, it's nice to know about it, but they want to know about the impacts, really going already to the very end of the science and whatever is the relationship between ocean and climate. And let's say about the cases, as I will show about floods, it's about at the very end of an extreme event of rain. They lost their house, they lost everything. So they want to really understand that, and they want really to understand from us what to do. So I will base my questions or provocations at the end based in few situations that unfortunately have been facing in Brazil in the last 4 years. We have at least 10 very extreme cases of floods that destroyed large regions. I'm bringing here 2 examples. This one was on Bertioga in São Paulo state coast. It's very near where I live. And it was February last year. And in less than 24 hours, in less than a day, we had more than 700 millimeters of rain. It was the most extreme rain already registered in Brazil. And then it led this region. We have, as you can see here in the top left, we have the Atlantic forest. So it led for a huge impact where the forest was just going down to the sea, and more than 100 people died, and a lot of neighborhoods were fully destroyed. The second situation might be that many of you are aware, is still unfortunately going on for more than a month. But at the beginning of the first 2 weeks of May, we have the state of Rio Grande do Sul, the southest state in Brazil. And here I want just to pause and remember everyone, when we say a state in Brazil, it means the same as a country in Europe. So the state of Rio Grande do Sul is bigger than Portugal. Okay, so we have the full state and more than 60% of the cities underwater. When I see underwater, like you can see here in the capital, houses disappeared, cars disappeared. It's still being ongoing. It was some cities as the capital, it stayed more than 10 days with full neighborhoods underwater. It was completely unexpected. We were not able to predict that. And at the very end, it was like really, really everyone trying to understand this. So by following this really close, I want to share these experiences and even say that is when we start to see the climate impacts, as we say for them now, in our reality. So in Brazil, we have been saying that the main image for climate change has been updated. Everyone always used the polar bear in Antarctica, but this is a photo from Rio Grande do Sul. This horse was found in the top of a house after staying 4 days there waiting for being rescued with no water, no food, nothing. So this was in all the damage you had, but it was something that through media really taught the Brazilians to understand, like, who in this life imagine to see a horse in the roof of a house for 4 days, like in an island. So it's now making people really understand what means the climate impact, but then they want to know what to do, how to be resilient, and how going. So I will not share case by case, a few minutes, but I will share a few thoughts based on these experiences. First, really getting from a question-led think is what Brazilians would value from science and innovation, from us relate to our area and then using the floods. And I try to bring that in 3 main points for you. What we learn with them is that the first thing is that they want a quick answer, and they ask us now, can we predict it? How you scientists can help us? Why didn't you tell us that would happen? And so now they started to open to understand the role of the ocean climate science and the observation systems, and it opens a wider discussion, even say, well, we don't have all the data. So what to do, but how can we then improve our observation systems? How can we make sure we have proper models? How can we make sure we are able to start to bring it to them? But then if you improve that, and that goes for our, when you say our communities, and again, I just want, I need to remember everyone, I'm saying about our experiences in Brazil. And if you look about the observation systems, the ocean observation systems and everybody, the amount of data that we had in the South Atlantic is hugely less than the North Atlantic. So our power to have proper models, proper observation systems that are secure to give information is much less than we are using in the global north. So that is a problem even now for the governments in all levels to understand, in the country, in the states, to say you need to invest on this, because now even the government, even the local communities, they want an answer, but we don't have properly the answer because we lack money, we lack funding, we lack proper data. And it's not only is the data that is from that region more accurate. Of course, we have data, but we need to improve this. And then they start now to even understand what we claim when we say that we need more money for science. But the second point in this discussion always goes on the territories, in this case, studies. We start to talk with them and they say, but please, can it be shared in an accessible way? Because usually researchers go there with many graphics, many information. It's not accessible in a way they cannot understand. The language is a scientific language. The content is too graphic, is too strong, and so they want to understand it. They are open to get those information, but they want the science being reached in their level. And then they want to know, with all this you guys are working on, what are the innovations? How can we apply in our local study, in our things? And the main point is here, based on the three questions, that I would say, how can we contribute as our area community, even very shortly, is if we are mapping, when we go for these flood situations and all the work we do in Brazil with these communities, I would say that there are three main points, again, that help us as community, as scientists, in addition to produce our data, our publications, that is there and priority, but there are something more we can do. First is co-produce with them. We need to listen them. We need to engage with them. And the more we can. Many situations what we heard is like, oh, but you guys, who are you first? Oh, but you are coming here now. The universities are coming to talk with us now. And why didn't you come before? And usually is a quite common that the researchers comes at the very end and we have a disaster saying, we came here with this, not to save you now. And no, it's not about that. It's what they are teaching us is like, we want science, but we want to be with the science all the time, and we want to understand it. And then the other point is that they should to lead. When I say they here, is whatever sector of the society impacted, the local communities, the fishery communities, the schools, the governments, the local governments. We more than tell them what to do, we need to listen and co-produce with them in a way that they decide what to do with our support. We will not, if this is a move, we will not be the main actor. We should be the secondary one, just giving support for them to really do. When we start to do that, and that demand to co-produce with them for a long time. But when we decide to do that, they get so stronger and then go on and on and on. And there we have examples that I can share in other moment about building citizen science where they start to monitor the rainfall, doing transdisciplinary projects, where we build small community labs and they start to learn about science and even how sometimes we cannot give all the data. Communication. We need to engage local media, the formal one, but also community-based communication. That means like for fishermen communities, they will hear the fisherman leader. So we need to talk with that person and they should share the information. And finally, the science policy. We can contribute on that. When we have a disaster, when we need climate resilience, that involves the citizens and the governments. And usually, at least in the country I live, there is always a conflict between citizens and government, specifically for vulnerable community neighborhoods. So the science can build a participatory process mediating where governments and citizens can work together. Now, in the case of Rio Grande do Sul, the state, they are building a scientific committee that would talk with community and support the governor to do that. I'm even glad to say that yesterday I was invited to be in this committee. So how can we really base this? And I will then finalize because I was going up, running out of time, but something really important here that I'm learning as Brazilian in these cases. I showed you that I showed two situations from the 10, one in my state, São Paulo state, and another one in Rio Grande do Sul. When I go to the Rio Grande do Sul to help that community, by being from a state in other region of Brazil is already something like, well, why are you coming here, guy? So we need to be with them. And I'm saying that because I don't know how much you are aware, but for example, the first action of the government of Rio Grande do Sul is now be requesting some consultants from abroad to support them to the reconstruction of states. And now the researchers and universities of the region are complaining and doing a lot of media efforts and say, hey, why are you going to look someone abroad? We are here. So we need to make sure to respect who is from the local, and then sometimes it's from the country and not always from the country. Even for me now to work with them, I made sure to go very slowly and make sure I'm here to help, but I understand I'm not from this state. So if I can do something for you, let me know. And then we go step by step. So as a royal community, let's take care to not invade. And I think this all goes to, if you're talking here today of coastal resilience, we are also working as the priority as came from South Africa in the observing for ocean and climate systems. But everything I showed about the community for climate resilience, it's about ocean literacy and strategic communication. That came in from Africa as a third point there to look at, because ocean literacy is not only about education in blue schools. Ocean literacy is about each of those sectors or communities understanding the climate resilience based on the observant systems. So we need to be developing this throughout the process all the time, and has to be a continuous thing. Those are learnings that we're having from Brazil. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We had 2 comments in the chat that were directed to you, Ronaldo. Very important comments. So we are noting all this. I don't know if the people that wrote the comments want now to share them out loud. We have another comment. We have now 3 minutes. If someone wants to make comments or ask questions to Ronaldo before we move to our second plenary speaker, you can just raise your hand if you have a comment or if you want to ask a question. I think everyone is happy for the moment. Oh, no, okay, that's a clapping hand. Thank you. Okay, so if everyone is happy, then I would suggest that we will move to our second plenary speaker. We invited, yeah, okay, thank you. We invited Pier Paolo Campostrini, who works or, is part of the Corilla, which is a consortium for coordination of research activities concerning the Venice Lagoon system. And in regards to coastal resilience, they have lots of experiences with science society collaboration in Venice, and also a lesson learned for the Atlantic Learn Abroad. So Pier Paolo, if you are ready, we will welcome your talk.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh. Okay. Try to send in presentation. Oh, presentation. No, not. Sorry, from the first.
No worries. I'm struggling with it today too. I don't know why it mirrors my screen. So
sorry for this.
No worries.
Eccolo qua. Here we are.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that no. Oh. Okay. Thank you very much for this invitation. And actually, Venice is not in the Atlantic, but is a city of the world. So, and I would like to say that, oh my God, this extreme events is not something which occurred yesterday. So we have a long story, starting from 60 years ago almost. This was the first event out of scale of the time series having till that moment, when Venice, we ran the risk to lose Venice because these waves which were hitting the coastal island of the Lagoon of Venice was very high, in somewhere broken, but not so much, in order that, and San Marco was only submerged but not destroyed by the waves. But what is the status of the fact? Because the events which hit Venice had an exponential growth after the Second World War, in the last part of the previous century. And this is a really impressive, this escalation of of times of frequency of the flooding. Few of them occurred before the Second World War per decade. These are numbered per decades. And then we started with 13 in the decade 1950 to 1959. And we arrive at 95 events in a decade, almost 10 per year. and then the dropping, as I will explain you, is going to the occurred after the installation of the defense of Mose. So this is a really corresponding of an escalation which occurred in Venice because it is more fragile than the rest of the city, being placed in a lagoon. But before the Mose, what we did during these 50 years before, in the last half of the previous century, what we experienced non-structural measures. So during the Acqua Alta events, or we were a strong awareness of the citizen and their capacity to adopt adaptive measures, like small scale, so defending your shops, like in the picture here, or having all the electrical system in some sense impermeabilized, so you can sell tramezzini and having a cappuccino in the bar even during the high tide events if you wear boots. So it was a way for adapting the city that we learned. We had an early warning system which advised us about the next occurrence of this event. So everybody was, or at least able to cope a bit with this in order to make this event not becoming a disaster like it was in the 1966, where we were not prepared. But the problem is that the images that we saw with the mud, we do not have mud. It's not a river flooding, it's a sea flooding. It's a sea flooding. The sea water is salty, and the salt is destroying the bricks and the plasters and the marbles as well. And so one of the attack was to the cultural heritage which is present in Venice in a larger part of going back to centuries ago, which was quickly degraded, and the aging, the normal aging of this structure was immensely accelerated by the presence of salt water. So these are the most iconic monument in Venice, the San Marco Basilica, and this angle here is 10 meters above the sea level, and so the rise up of the salty water by capillarity makes these fluorescences in the plasters, and then would carry to the detachment of these tiles which were put in the year 100 to 1200. And so what we have, we had a game changer, which is the Mose. I believe everybody have heard at least once about this big infrastructure, which is able to protect Venice, is placed in the mouth, what we call mouth of the lagoon, so the inlets which connect the lagoon, which is here with the sea. It is a barrier. Each of these is of this inlet is 400 meters wide, and so we have 1.6 kilometers of barrier. They are mobile barriers. Oh my God. They are mobile barriers. Normally, they are laid down on the sea bottom in these large caissons made of concrete. When needed, air is pushed inside these iron gates, and they start rising up, and they are able to float, realizing this 1.65 kilometers of protection, and they are invisible when not in operation. This is a huge work which took a bit too long to be realized, but it's not the only one we did. So sorry, no, I cannot answer now. Sorry, he's an important person, but I cannot. So I will put wait. Okay. And the beach nourishment was done in the littoral island that you saw that they were in order to avoid overtopping by the sea. This was one of the places where the waves were higher than in the first picture of 1966, we realized the beach in front of this seawalls, which were made during the Republic of Venice at the end of the 18th century. And this is quite a huge work done. Is the largest confined with these gyrons beach nourishment occurred in Europe. And we did also in the city other kind of intervention. The most iconic one is this recent glass barrier all around the Basilica of San Marco, which is not only the most iconic, is also the most precious part. So even when the tides is not so high for raising the Mose, but it is enough to go inside the lowest part of the city. The water does not go anymore against the marble, so we start to restore the marble inside because we were able to keep the water out. Now we are doing a work here in order to impermeabilize the whole insula, the island where is the San Marco Piazza and the Basilica is placed. In this way, we will have not anymore the water in front of the Basilica of San Marco. So at the end, the approach of occurred in Venice. Sorry for this. Is a mixture of accommodation and resistance. So for the Piazza San Marco, which is the lowest part, we have this approach of insulating the island to protect immediately the Basilica. So in corresponding to the different events, we can simply having a passive present. In the future, we will have a passive defense or semi-passive defense of the whole insula, and an active defense at the lagoon, which will be able to stop water up to 3 meters of level in the sea. The maximum ever was 2 meters, so we have still 1 meter more. And in this way, the Venice will be protected. It is not only what the science is doing, because the problem does not end with the protection of flooding. We have an environment, the lagoon, to be protected. It is is a city inside the lagoon, but with a port, which is placed here in the close to Venice, but in the land, in the border of the lagoon. And the access to the port caused a change in the morphology, dredging this channel to access to give economic life to Venice, but caused some problems in the salt marshes, which are essential for the lagoon life. They are not only beautiful, but essential for the habitat. So we did, and we still have to do more nature-based solution in order to preserve this kind of environment. What are these mobile barriers paradigm? How long? There was a recent presence of in the newspaper or in a magazine of Euronews saying, okay, but how long the Mose will last? The Mose will last up to 80 to 100 years from now. Yes, but the Mose will be finished in 2150. Yes, but in the meanwhile, we have preserved the lagoon, and we have 50, 60, 100 years time to think what doing in the next step. And so there is not anymore, I would like to assure you, any kind of forecast that we see again Venice flooded, as in the first pictures I show you. But we will evolve, having the right sizing, the intervention in order to preserve the environment, the city, the cultural heritage, and the habitat, and also the social life of Venice, because it's not worth to save a dead city, no? So we have to maintain also the city in the social part. And therefore, in the different scenarios that IPCC is placing, of course, we can be less of course, we hope that the global behavior of the world will carry to in the lowest part. If we will be able to decarbonize, most probably the sea level rise will be lower than the most critical ones. But we know that we have not finished. We have to improve our knowledge. We have to manage in a different way. Maybe we will change the paradigm for the protection of Venice in the next decades. But till then, we have preserved the Venice from flooding. I will. In the title there is this science to policy. Of course, and I have not all the time to explain where and why, a lot of science was needed in both the design, but also I would like to underline this, during the construction of the model, which lasted for more than 12 years. So we were engaged as scientists in a large monitoring program in order not to provide to make this construction would have an immediate effect on the environment, or on a bad effect on the environment. So, for instance, the big construction which occurred on the border of these huge cases, each of these is 20,000 tons, was manufactured near the sea. Then this area was flooded, and then these caissons were floating because there was some air inside, and then put here on the bottom of the sea. So for doing this, and you see that there are still nearby the cultivation, agriculture, tourism, and this is one of the areas that I show in the before we start the seminar as a lot of camping site for tourists. So we have to preserve the environment. We did a lot of work for measuring that all the parameters could have stayed within the limit. And I would say that this was a success, also the construction itself. The integrated solution, at the end, we developed the integrated solution for a very complex system. So everything is placed together like in a puzzle. So at the end, you must have environmental protection, or you have to increase the environmental resilience. Also some nature-based solution. We have to improve the local defenses where it's possible with some there are inhabitants. We have to protect from the sea with storms, and then we will have also the mobile barriers. Without a clear observation system which allow good management of the system and also its maintenance, this would never be possible. So at the end, why I am speaking here? Oh my God, because the sea level rise is clearly a global challenge. According to the World Economic Forum, 410 million people are predicted to be at risk from rising sea level. So it's not, I'm speaking only one of the effect of the climate risk, one of the effect of climate change, sorry. And I would like to stress this, that this is important because everybody knows, but in my own opinion, to the sea level rise has not given so much attention, because at the end, we needed to put in place adaptation measure urgently, because this the sea level will continue to rise, even if we will not put any gram of CO2 in the atmosphere. But the sea level, the inertia of the ocean system will continue to make the sea level to grow. So despite these fragilities, Venice was successful to be safer from flooding. And now what can we do? We are offering ourselves to be a place where to discuss how to cope with the consequences of sea level rise worldwide. Because what we are learning in Venice can be applied, can be useful elsewhere. Sure, no coastal defense is one size fits all. No, it's not possible to replicate simply in a series what we did with the Mose. But the know-how can be transferred, because apart from the MOSE, thousands of complementary interventions have been made, and they may be useful in completely different situations in any part of the world. So that's why Venice is part of the UNDRR. UNDRR is the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Is in a campaigning speaking city to city, making city resistance. In particular, we are dealing with cultural heritage protection, but the thing is larger than that. Just an example, which is concerning an Atlantic place. This is a beautiful place of Antigua, where there is also UNESCO site, the Admiral Nelson's dockyard, which is placed at the sea level, no? More or less, as in the picture here, is very far from Venice, is very close in terms of the kind of problem that they are facing today. And these buildings within is beautiful, is something that they have to preserve. And as you can notice from this picture on the right of the screen, it's difficult to say where is Venice and where is Antigua here in the picture. The bricks are the same, the problems are similar. And actually, we went there to say, okay, concerning is we are not repeating, we cannot repeat the MOSE, but a climate adaptation plan can be done, considering the different situation. There could be a transfer of knowledge of different kind, because of course, in some sense, everybody knows that the smaller island developing states are more vulnerable to the compared to the other world regions, taking into account not only the physical location, but also the economic environment and the other environmental vulnerabilities. So this is what my last consideration. What we experienced in Venice can be part, if useful, if needed, if asked, to a wider experience that can be immediately transferred, because the sea level rise issue is not a problem for tomorrow, but is already a problem of today. Venice, in this sense, is the oldest city of the future. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much, Pierpaolo. It was very interesting. Two very interesting talks. Thank you very much. You've had some comments in the chat that you can look at a little bit later, or if the people that wrote the chat wants to now talk, we can take a minute, or if there are questions, can take a minute, and then we will take a very short break and come back for the breakout groups. So questions, comments? Not for now. Good. So we already wrote in the chat that we're going to keep all of the chats, and we are all of the comments in the chat. So don't hesitate to write your comments there so we can access them later and also put them in the report in the minutes. So now let's take a 5 minutes break. We will come back and continue at 4:10, so 16:10. Thank you very much and see you in 5 minutes. Okay, so we are going to separate in different breakout groups. That means that multiple people are going to be moved into breakout rooms. How we have proceeded is that we have split the participants into 3 groups. Once we have, you will see a group button will appear at the bottom of your screen. Then please click on it, and then you will be brought in your breakout group room. So each group will address the 3 questions that I mentioned earlier, so need, scope, and deliverable. And each of these questions will be addressed for 15 minutes. One important thing to mention is you should identify a rapporteur who will be assigned at the beginning of the breakout group and who will report what you people, what the participants have discussed and talked about in the breakout groups for the plenary after we finish, we close the breakout groups. We will take 1 minute at the beginning to establish we could be the rapporteur. Yes, we will put the link in a second in the chat. All of the work will be done in the whiteboard that you see on the right side of the screen. This is a Miro board. And now I would like to invite my colleague at the German Marine Research Consortium, Jonathan, to quickly or to explain how a Miro board functions. But be sure that one person from our team will be with you in the breakout groups to support you for the technical side of it. Jonathan, if you want to try now.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Also from my side, I'm a colleague of Sophie and Stefan at the German Marine Research Consortium. Yeah, I will briefly share my screen to show you what a Miro board is. It's basically a virtual whiteboard, pretty easy to use. So here at the top, we will link in a few seconds in the, you can already see a few people joining here. Here at the top, you can see a few slides just for your information. These are informations and slides from the presentation. And with the groups, we will work right on these 3 slides. Like Sophie said, in each group, one of us will moderate and help if there are any issues. Somebody's already waving. And for each group, we have 1 color, 1 question per slide. So for example, I will moderate group 1. We will start with the questions, what are the most important community and scientific needs around the Atlantic? And now I can go here, pick the yellow color, which is for group 1. And for example, I go to Portugal. This is just made up, so there's no scientific base behind. Maybe at the Portuguese coast, there's a need for small scale flood forecasting, for example. So then I can write it here, and I just need to ensure that the size of the, yeah, now you can see it, and I can put it here, and then I can do other ones, and there's always the note, or to even to make it smaller. You can play a bit around. It's basically a relatively easy sort of collaboration. If you want to reverse something, you can undo it here at the left. So yeah, now it should be back at its first place. Not now. Now you can zoom in and out here, or with your touchpad, it's relatively easy. Okay, I will stop sharing. If you have any questions in between, you can ask one of us. So if there's nothing else, Sophie, I think we can move into the breakout groups.
Okay. Yes, please. Let's move into breakout groups. You should be brought in. Like I said, you will have the button at the bottom of your screen. Please accept and move. And theoretically, if everything works, we will bring you all back in automatically right before having a short break again. Thank you and see you soon. Happy discussion. Okay, so let's all slowly come back to go discuss what happened in the breakout groups. We now have about 30 minutes to discuss and report about the ideas and the different things we highlighted during the breakout groups. I think I would start with group 1, the one that was led by Jonathan to start, as they are group 1. That was just done randomly, but now we'll invite you. Or should we? Actually, no, that's not what we wanted to do. Sorry, I just remembered while I was talking, we are going to go from question to question. So we're going to start with the needs, and then we're going to move to the scope, and then we're going to go to the deliverables. So I think Jonathan will share his screen now so that we can all see the Miro board that was produced. And now we are going to talk about what are the most important community and scientific needs around the Atlantic. And I will invite the reporter of each group to moderate and present their little post-its. So maybe we can start with the reporter of group 1 of the little yellow post-its.
That would be me.
Okay. Hi, Anna.
Hi. So I will just read out. I try to organize the post-its into themes, essentially. So I'll just report, and then the colleagues from the group can just jump in and correct me. So on the question 1, so a lot of the inputs were around data and tools. So data on climate change, obviously, long-term and extreme, new emerging ecosystems, cumulative impacts for sectors and people, indigenous people, more data on connectivity of ecosystem services, and the resilience of resources and nature to these changes, so resilience of shifting food webs. And then some of it was about access to evidence, so improving access by diverse stakeholders, including indigenous peoples, local communities, to decision support tools. Some of them had to do with coordination across countries and within countries towards tools and analysis, so decision support tools in essence, towards decision making to protect jobs, infrastructure, ecosystems, collaboration towards management, and particularly planning. There was a lot of people thought that planning is a particular area that requires more coordination, particularly plans that recognize diverse needs as well as being resilient to climate change. And I think that was more or less it, but please correct me.
Yes, so someone else from the group of yellow post-it that would like to add something to what Anna just mentioned of your resume? Looks good. I think no one has anything to add. Oh, yes, Mark.
Yeah, Anna, thank you. Very well done. I would add an additional note. Often these issues are discussed as ocean issues, and the folks that show up feel that the coasts themselves are just a boundary condition, an edge of the ocean. So there's a geographic focus both on processes to really truly get into an estuarine setting, even into watershed impacts. So that's a piece of this puzzle as well.
Yes, thank you. Also very important to note. Then it will be added later on once we review the notes. Thank you very much, Mark, for this. So now I would say if there's nothing else to be added with the yellow post-its, if I may call you like this, we're gonna move to the pink or the coral post-its, which was the group I was in. I don't know if maybe Paul or Ronaldo or
Alexander, just because I may have to duck out in 10 minutes
okay.
before we end. A whole variety of things here, but I would say they fall under 3 broad categories based on my quick perusal. First of all, there is the needs of the community. So these are economic needs, food security needs, concerns about rising sea level, those sorts of things. So addressing those needs. A second one is collaboration opportunities and needs, trying to get people together, whether that's scientists with scientists from different parts of the world, or scientists with communities to understand and develop problems and solutions together. And then a third piece is a communication one of trying to communicate the science. And that is to policymakers, it's to local communities to understand, what it is that's going on and how science can help to inform decisions associated with those particular challenges. So I haven't looked at them all. I just very quickly put those 3 broad categories together and would invite others from the group to jump in with pieces that I know I have missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. And if you have to leave before, thank you for participating, and we will for sure see you in Ottawa in October.
For sure.
Yes, I would just use my board to zoom in, but I think Paul really took the main message that we had regarding this. If no one from the pink group, the pink post-it group has something to add, then we would move to the turquoise post-it, which was a group led by Stefan.
I think that's me. Hi, everybody. I'm Gina, and I am the director of a new project in the UK about coastal community resilience, the Arise. And we discussed, so we entered this with a lot of the comments from the other groups there already, or at least the yellow ones. Anyway, so we were trying to build on that. And some of the things that we focused on were the joint needs, in particular, the foundations of trust between communities and policymakers. How do they access each other? How do they learn from each other rather than attempting to view the situation as though information is only flowing in one direction? How do they share information about their needs and about developments that are innovative? And what sort of mechanisms could we recommend? We discussed at Stefan's explicit question, what tools are available to facilitate the needs of sharing information and building trust. And we mentioned some digital and technological tools, early warning systems, websites and apps that are useful, and app making facilities and innovations, which we can talk about also in the context of number one, as well as some community-based tools and interactive tools. One is called the Open Space Charter, which is something that we're testing here in the UK. It's a framework, a system for interacting with communities and co-designing a charter about resilience for that community that then sets the groundwork for how interactions will take place and how to keep communication and trust strong, and so they won't be eroded. I think that was some of our main things. I'm happy for anyone else from group 3 to add.
Okay, thank you very much. Sergio, you have a comment?
To just share a very, very small thought with all of you, to just give you a little bit provocative question, to see the elephant in the room. In this moment, the Global South is getting far, far away from the North. That is a reality. You trust it or not, or you believe it or not. And then sometimes the North is trying to just reaching through a third party, through a third country to reach the Global South, because the Global South now is, they have their own view about many things. We don't have to. But then I want to ask you, how do you see this problem, this issue? Because it's a real issue that I'm seeing in different countries, in Africa, Latin America, and no doubt about Asia. So how do you see this problem? Because we are talking about this kind of approach to the local communities sometimes, but many of these local communities, but also governments, are very reluctant to be helped or be tutored by the global North.
Yes, thank you. I was just noting that to make sure we keep that in mind. I think that's a little bit what Ronaldo was also talking about when he was talking about how Brazil, certain districts are not so happy to see people getting involved in their life. I think this is definitely a point that we have to keep in mind and to address. We also discussed this in group 2, that different communities also have completely different needs, and also different governments that are allocating the funds or allocating the resources, whatever they are, differently to each community, and also that the needs are very different throughout the Atlantic. So this is definitely something that we can keep as a question or as a point to address at a later when we discussed the strategy report, the scoping report at the workshop. Yes, Patrizio, please come in.
Just quickly, because I know that we are running out of time, but I think there is a big potential for the so-called science diplomacy in this, because I think we have common problems across different regions of the Atlantic, and addressing them together from a scientific point of view, I think that's where we should focus on.
Thank you very much. Also noted. I'm also happy we are recording. It will, we have good points, and sometimes it's important to record them. So I would say that now we should move to the, Veronique?
Yeah, I just wanted to stress also that a potential answer to that issue is the concept of co-design, co-creation, because it means that we won't go somewhere where we are not wanted if we really apply this rule of co-design, co-creation.
Thank you. Godwell?
Your facilitator. I also want to just enhance what has been said there by adding that part of our objective should also be to build a common goal. So there are problems or challenges that are on the intersection in the Atlantic Atlantic Ocean. So it will also be good for us then maybe to identify common projects across the basin that can bring us together. Then also have the diversity to say there are other unique problems that could be associated with other parts of the ocean. So we need then maybe to move with that dichotomy that there are common challenges and there are also unique challenges, and we need to address them both equally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Then I would say we will move to the second slide, which was the scope. I'll just repeat the question. So which aspect of coastal resilience should a collaborative effort encompass? And there were a lot of post-its there too. So I started putting them on the side so that it is a bit more readable. So I would invite first the rapporteur of now they're not post-its anymore, but the little yellow circles to share with us what you discussed.
Thank you. So again, I've tried to organize them into themes. So I think the first one had to do with the types of impacts that perhaps resilience requires effort from. So some of it had to do obviously with extreme or long-term change, so sea level rise, storm frequency, resilience of food webs, effects of marine heat waves, and their impacts on not just nature as in different levels of organization in nature, but also sectors reliant on those ecosystems. In terms of the tools that we covered, there was some emphasis on better integration of tools that address extreme and long-term climate change, particularly through policy and analysis. Policy development and analysis. The analysis being decision support tools, needs for better models to support future planning. So planning is always forward-looking, I guess, but I think that's what the colleague meant. And of course, improving access to these tools by the people involved in that planning and in that decision-making, and also by their stakeholders, and really supporting that those tools are co-created. So there was a lot of emphasis on co-creation. There was some discussion or some inputs around different networks about how this work could go about. There was reference to a tie-in with the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Framework, the link to the UN Ocean Decade for Science for Sustainable Development, Working Group 6, which also has to do with coastal resilience. Although some colleagues, or one colleague suggested that this group, so that this initiative should avoid actually creating new stakeholder groups because perhaps of the diversity of groups that exist, but to seek to make relationships with those groups and be a high-level technical partner. And then there was some comment as well about linking scenario-based action to minimize impacts, and I think that links as well with the decision support tools. And I think that was all from us, unless I've missed something.
Yes, thank you very much, Anna. I will again invite your group members if they have something to add or questions. Okay, so if we are all happy. Oh, yes, Mark, please.
I would share the observation, even building on what we were just discussing together on the prior slide. There does seem to be some question. Well, let me start with clarity that I'm hearing, that if communities are, if we're focusing on outcomes on the ground, that these concepts of co-production, et cetera, are central to those, and locally based established trust organizations should be leveraged to make sure that the folks that we seek to help are being helped. I think that is non-controversial. The question that seems to be emerging is, does this group, this particular group, seek to be creating those connections, or to be connecting with organizations and international processes where those connections exist already? I would offer my 2 cents that we should avoid at all costs reproducing wheels and seeking to think that our insights are uniquely trenchant, but rather work with those folks and those organizations that could benefit from a technical partnership like this group could bring. And I think that's consistent also with the founding documentation of this. We can design our behaviors and state aspirations to have outcomes on the ground be useful, but stop short of actually building those ourselves, but build them by design through partnership.
Yes, thank you for that comment, Mark. It is again well noted. I think something that was really important to us when we joined, I mean, as OKEANO, the area was, we didn't want to reinvent everything. We really wanted to put emphasis into connecting people together and connecting the existing material that is already out there, because on coastal resilience, there are a lot of agencies, a lot of projects, a lot of efforts that have been made through for a long time. So we would really like to put some resource towards connecting people together. Okay, thank you. So now, okay, Paul, thank you very much. Have a nice day and weekend. It's almost weekend now. Bye, thank you. Yes, so we now move to Paul's group. Paul unfortunately just left, so I would like to invite someone else in the pink bubble group to maybe give a little resume of what we discussed, of the ideas we put on the Miro board. But maybe, I'm looking who's there. Ronaldo, would you like to?
If none of the colleagues go, I can quickly bring it. I think there was a very similar approach from what Anna's already presented, but I would say that it goes from one side of the let's say structures. So we had a lot of discussions on nature-based solution, but also bringing the integration with gray solutions and how those are specific innovations in field. There were many discussions on governance and communication. So what are the aspects of the role of each stakeholders and how to communicate with them, and also about the data. I'm trying to bring in here a few categories as well, but about of the data, so some aspects and how to make sure we have the data and how it's accessible for every was the main point is here.
Yes, thank you. I was also looking at what we wrote, a bit zoomed in on my screen. Yes, I think that was.
I think we were first on this board, and we did start a little bit on the actual scientific data as well. So there's quite a lot there about modeling, which I know is another group, but it's establishing the. And it goes back to the comment we had just before this as well about what's the remit of this group. But there's a lot there about the baseline data. Just can we establish what it is we want to measure? And there's a few comments about climate, but there's very little around the coast. I think it's one thing I didn't pick up after we left the board was we didn't specify what kind of data we actually wanted from the coasts.
Yeah,
much.
that's true.
Oh, I know there's existing data sets out there around coastal erosion vulnerability, but it's taking that data set and putting it into these sorts of things like spatial planning, and that's something we didn't really talk about. But I think it's one thing that's probably missing.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you very much for this comment. Yes, I think that resumed quite well what we did in the second group. I think Steve now added something. Someone else wants to add, or someone wants to ask a question?
Yeah,
No, then yes, Godwell, sorry.
I just want to add there and then enhance to say we may need then to have projects on real-time monitoring of settlement development. I think it's a big story, and it then assists us in terms of early warning systems, especially for real-time settlement developments. This might not be common in other countries, but in developing countries, there's a lot of informal settlement that can just mushroom overnight, and then they settle in vulnerable environments, flood lines, and all other issues, fire, buffers, and when the disasters come, then it can be a real disaster. Thank you, and all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I will move to the Turkey bubbles. I think it was Gina that was the reporter. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Thank you. So we started with the idea that what you can co-develop with a community is all derivative of the relationship with the community, and that the end result is ideally making it more resilient to disasters. So rather than sort of picking and choosing which types of data or which information was needed or more needed, it was really, we wanted to focus on it as a matter of bringing everything together and making it work for the community. So we had some different ideas for that. And in particular, Stefan motivated us with the question, is there a way to galvanize the interests of scientists who are already doing their research to go above and beyond the research and really engage with the ideal end users or the needed end users of some of it? And the first thing that some of us came up with was funding. Obviously, it's a good way to incentivize scholars and researchers and to make components of that funding contingent on plans for having impact with the communities, impact outside of the actual research community and with end users, and to fund that as part of, from the onset, and make sure that it's measured and documented by the scholars who are doing it. This helps create the networks. It is easier to, Stefan pointed out, communicate a joint project and bring everyone along with it than it is to get people organized behind different announced priorities. So one of the major suggestions was essentially a toolbox for the communities with all the protocols, from everything theoretical to the most practical, and visual approaches, telling people how to apply for funding, how to apply different tools that exist, how to use them, and make guides for people to consult so that they can easily find out how to use them without an active person being there involved in doing that, making it very plain and easy to engage with. And it was pointed out also that we need to be very savvy to the protocols and customs in other countries, particularly in the global south, around the Atlantic in this case, visa issues, science permissions, research permissions, the idea of a knowledge hub of the Atlantic coastal countries, and making connections to it, something that can last for a long time, so that members of the hub may come and go over time as roles change, as there is attrition in different agencies, but that the changeover, for example, of policy priorities when a new government is elected, or of an agency's priorities when the head moves to another place, that changeover doesn't derail the building of trust and the building of communication for the entire Atlantic community. So we were thinking that that could be something concrete that this organization could do, including supporting local actors with international workshops, which are a big incentive if they can attend, with digital skills and other capacity building skills, and with regular interactions and shared priorities.
Okay, thank you very much for the resume of the scope for your breakout group. We will now move to the third, so the deliverables, and we will have to be a little bit quicker here if we want to finish on time. Sorry, but deliverables are something that are normally a little bit more constrained in definition, so it's normally a little bit easier, but be assured that everything will be contained in the report. So we will definitely address everything that we see, or at least read them all. So I will start with Anna now to add a little bit or to resume what the group did. And if you could do it in 2 minutes, it would be great.
Yeah, perfect. So about how to bring information to communities, we talked about co-creation. So in terms of letting the communities tell us what works for them. So that, you know, we mentioned earlier, one approach will not work everywhere. So that in some cases that might be, you know, an online tool or an online toolbox. In other cases, it might be connection to trusted actors. It was raised the importance of engaging with the next generation. So engaging with high schools, enable mobility programs, and so on. And working with networks on the ground, as was raised already several times before, people that are already there, so improving that access. And then in terms of what we would bring, so it's about the data, the tools, and accessibility. So facilitating access to risk and vulnerability analysis in plain language that people can, regular people can engage with. Open access database, but again, adapted, so non-jargon. So maybe it's that translation of the evidence that might be important at the local level. And then also, again, approaching a broad audience, but perhaps with apps that use multiple layers, so that bring together different sources of information. And in terms of the format, it was about perhaps some of that work could be done through case studies to demonstrate risks and outcomes that might facilitate, you know, that visualization of the desired trajectory, and then you know, by using tangible outputs that people can relate to. And then again, there was this reference, as brought up before, about not building the tools directly, but rather about being at this network, about being an advisor, a scientific, highly technical partner, rather than starting from before. So I think, you know, that was a particular person that thought that. And that's it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm muted. Thank you very much, Anna. Very good resume. I'm moving again to the little pinkish post-it. Multiple people have left our group. I don't know if maybe
I'll have a quick go again. Yeah.
Yeah, super. Thank you.
Well, being very quick, I think one of the key points that came out was the circularity of the communication. So what we communicate needs to be asked for, in a sense, not quite so harshly put, but we need to communicate what the communities want to know. And to know what the communities want to know, we need to know what they want to know first, before we design anything and before we do anything, really. So that I think was the strongest point that came out. There's lots of other things around avoiding the helicopter science and things like that, again, and training generations of people to communicate. And I think that goes potentially both internally, so that's training this group to communicate with them, but also then potentially taking that training and enabling locals to do further work on our behalf, in a sense, and allow that sort of communication to develop from us outwards. I think that's probably it. Further than what's already been said, there are many other things, but
Yes, thank you very much for this resume. I think that's you had the main message. Thank you very much. And now I will move to Gina with the turkeys Post-it.
Thank you. Turquoise, 2 minutes. Here we go. So data information portals that are open access, that are accessible and usable for as wide a group of stakeholders as possible. And we strongly advise against each place or each new effort trying to have its own portal to share information, but more working together. In fact, in Norway, there are some very good examples of this where the data is all available according to certain protocols and agreements, and all of that can be utilized quite easily by users who can make their own apps drawing on any kind of data that's useful and any particular data sets that they like to make whatever sorts of apps are useful to them. So things like that, which we could also share with other communities, and how to do that really makes it accessible and makes it useful for exactly what the communities want. We did talk quite a bit about finding out what communities want to know, what they need to know, and getting them involved in the best ways that are possible for them, and receiving information and learning from them. And I think that, also making sure that we use what the local communities already use, such as newspaper, radio, if it's WhatsApp or other Facebook and social media, more effective than building a new network or building new ways of communicating. So we need to find out their solutions and perspectives. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think this one point is very important. We need to ask them, we need to find a way to contact them and ask them what they want, what would work for them. And depending on the location throughout the Atlantic, it might be different. So I think this is something we really have to take back to our work, and definitely keep that in mind when we want to contact them and involve them. Okay, thank you very much for all of these reporting and this hard work in the groups. Yes, so I will now invite Stefan to go back to our slides, or to our PowerPoints. Yes, so we are now reaching the end of our great workshop today. I'm very happy, but I will say later. But yeah, the next step were mentioned a little bit earlier when we came together. So the main 3 concrete steps that are coming towards us and what it will be important for our coastal resilience work is, today we had the workshop. I mentioned that we are going to do a scoping report that will be towards in the summer, maybe towards August. We will share that with you. And following this, we will have the workshop I already talked about. So this will be an Atlantic Forum that will take place in Ottawa in Canada from the 9th to the 10th of October. But we will have a follow-up coastal resilient workshop at this event, and this will take place on the 8th of October. You will all receive a save the notes in the next few weeks, but please note it already. We will be more than happy if you can join us and if we can continue our conversation we started today. And we are really aiming to have a proposal for coastal resilience action towards the end of 2024. So if at any time you want to share something with us, you want to contact us or discuss coastal resilience, or you feel the need to have an extra event, please contact us and we will try to make this happen to the best of our capabilities. But please keep in mind our coastal resilience workshop in Ottawa on the 8th of October. And I will now show you the contact details that you can use to contact us. So within the German, the short-term outputs, I completely forgot.
Maybe I can sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Just one small thing. So we're not going to ignore you until August. We'll send you the materials from today's workshop, okay? Because that wasn't on the timeline. It just occurred to me while Sophie was speaking. Anyway, sorry.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, as I think it was Matthew that asked for the protocol in German, we say the minutes. So yeah, that will be done. But just to come back on the scoping papers, then I talked about the short-term output. So the workshop report that I say will be delivered in summer. So what do we want to include in this? So we want to have the key messages from today's meeting. We want to include the concern and opportunities. So what we raised a little bit during the breakout groups, what we discussed will be included in this. We want to have a proposal for the next steps, which we already discussed a little bit also in the breakout groups and in the plenary. And what else should be included? So if you have any inputs on this, please email us and or tell us or write it in the chat for the next 10 minutes. And Sylvia mentioned at the beginning that what we would really like is your engagement. We really want you to remain part of the process. We want to, I mean, we would really appreciate, I don't want to say we want to, but we would really appreciate if you stay engaged and if you continue to give us our contribution, your contribution. Stefan presented the I don't want to call it knowledge, but the story maps that we are building at the moment. So please use the link that is here in the slide to access it. You will also receive an email containing the link. And as I mentioned earlier, also we will organize a virtual stakeholder workshop with the Air Center probably during the networking Fridays. Some of you probably have heard about them, and this will be in late August. So then we can also reopen the discussion and address other things that you would like to be included or what you think and judge that is important. So if also you have any suggestion of other partners, other people, other scientists, other players that you would like to be included in this process, especially for non-English speaking regions, please contact us, send us an email. We'll be happy to include them. Save the date. I mentioned a couple of times now, so save the date. 8th of October for the Coastal Resilience Workshop. And the contact details, I have now put my email in the chat. The KDM, the German Marine Research Consortium, you met 3 of us today. Myself, Stefan that presented the story map, and Jonathan that helped with the mural. So don't hesitate to write to us, to contact us in any way. And for the OKEANO coordination team, we have Veronica and Laura. They are from the Marine Institute Ireland. They are both present here as observer today. Please also don't hesitate to contact them. They will be happy to direct your requests or your needs to the proper person. And on this, I will say that we even finished a little bit earlier. We were running late, but then I guess I spoke quickly. Yes, Patricio.
Yeah,
Please.
then I can spoil you with your timeline. But just to add a little bit on details on the event on the 25th of September, which can be used to keep up on the discussion here. The policy event will be focusing on the socio-ecological resilience in the Azores, or using the Azores as a example where there are many elements related to biodiversity. It's a hotspot of biodiversity. And one of these elements that we want to address is also the role of megafauna in the impact on the society there, because there is a little bit of a trade-off between the small-scale fishery and also the tourism industry that is growing. So that one will be structured in like 3 parts, 3 components. In the morning, there will be very much the focus on the local communities and engaging with the community that we have created in the Mission Atlantic. Then the afternoon, we want to expand that to the Macaronesia community and having people invited from Cabo Verde and Gran Canaria as well. And yeah, I forgot the last one. But also representative of the regional organizations. ICAT, for example, could be there, or someone from IPBES. And then the last part of the afternoon, we want to open it up to the AORIA and the All Atlantic collaboration. So if anyone is interested to contribute and participate, just get in contact, because we are shaping, as we speak, the agenda. Yeah, thanks to give me the opportunity to advertise the event and also engage with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here and taking part into to the workshop. I also want to thank our our invited speakers, and Sylvia Nemeth from the European Commission for participating and helping us to organize and supporting us through the whole event. I see comments in the chat. Yes, okay. Yes. Yeah, so the Networking Fridays is an event that is organized by the Air Center. It was organized by a colleague, Jose, that has a lot. I mean, Stefan might want to explain it better than me because he knows about it since more years than me. But it's a networking, it's a webinar that is held every Fridays where people come and there's a speaker that presents one aspect of something about science, and people are welcome to join. And we want to collaborate with them to try to reach out to more people and express and share and distribute what we are doing. So that will be the Networking Fridays. I also want to thank two other colleagues, mostly I don't see her here, but also from the I had the time to thank Sylvia, but I also wanted to thank Iveta, who was also supporting us strongly during the development of the program for the coastal resilience. She also works at the European Commission, and I want to thank all of the area partners for submitting your names and nominating you to take part of our 2-hour meeting, because without your participation, it will not have worked. So, and it was a little bit last minute. So thank you very much for coming in such short notice. And thank you again. And hopefully we will see you very soon online and maybe in person in Canada. And unless someone else has a comment, I would say thank you and have a nice evening or a nice afternoon.